guys, welcome to another episode here at the At My Gardener channel. If you guys are following on, we are doing the Back to Basics series, and this is episode number 2, and Luke's going to help me pick some seeds or how to just pick seeds in general. So I know it's something that I really enjoy doing, and maybe I overbought in the past, but Luke is going to definitely guide us, so you can just fill us in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think for everyone, buying seeds is probably one of the most it can be the most overwhelming as well as the most exciting experience for a gardener. And I think even for me, you get closer to spring, you still want to buy more seeds. And so I think the first tip that I have for everyone, including yourself, is to just have a cutoff point. Have a cutoff point where you say, I've clearly got enough seeds. Because I think if you keep searching, you're always going to find that next one that you want. I think even myself, even now, it's like you have to just physically draw a line in the sand where reality kind of kicks in and says, I don't have enough room to plant all these. Because I know, funny story is that when, maybe you remember this, when we got married, you were big into gardening before we got married, and you brought with you a couple shoe boxes full of seeds. And you're like, hey, I don't know if you want any of these, but I've got all these seeds. And there were seeds from like 3 years ago that when we first started dating that you still haven't even opened yet.
Yeah.
and so it's like one of those things where like you probably bought the seeds with good expectations of planting them, but never got around to it because there's just so much you can't plant them all. So the next tip that I'd have is that since you're someone that I know likes to try new varieties, I'm someone that likes to try new varieties, and I would imagine most of you like to try new varieties. Trying new varieties is fun, but in order to have a successful garden, especially if you're a beginning gardener, it's important to stick to tried and true heirloom varieties that people have been growing for decades, and in some cases even centuries. And so it's something that I think a lot of people, they want to try that new variety, and they pretty much fill their entire garden with new varieties. But the new varieties, and I say new, I mean unique varieties they may never have heard of before. Some of the reasons why you may never have heard of them before is because they're really kind of unique, quirky heirlooms, which can be very cool, but they don't have the track record of being successful as some of your more market-friendly varieties. And that's kind of where I fall, is that if you're gardening for necessity and you're trying to put food on your table and you're also trying to have a successful garden to kind of boost confidence, you got to try market-friendly varieties. And that's where, obviously, we're at mygardener.com headquarters here. So this is our seed store, and we have over 300 varieties of heirloom seed. But the thing is, they're not just any old heirloom seed. Mm-hmm. They're market-friendly heirloom seed. So I'm going to walk you through, show you some of my favorite market-friendly varieties, but they're all, if you go on mygardener.com, you're going to find all the seeds that we have here, 99 cents a pack. But there's some specific ones that I really love growing, so I want to walk you through them and kind of show you why I love growing them.
Cool.
So Cindy, the first one that I want to show you was Blue Lake Bush Bean. Now the reason why I love Blue Lake Bush Bean is because, we grow a lot of different beans. We grow some of the yellow beans, some of the purple beans, things like that. But if I had to pick one bean, it'd be Blue Lake Bush Bean. It is super productive. It grows really well through summer, spring, and fall, whereas most beans will kind of peter out during the summer heat. They kind of fizzle out when the heat comes, and they'll reproduce in the fall. Blue Lake Bush Bean, not the case. It's an all season. So for someone like me that looks for production, I love it. I will grow probably about 50% of my 50% of my beans will be Blue Lake Bush Bean, and then I kind of just mix and match some of those unique new ones that maybe I grow for fun or different reasons. But definitely, that's a good one.
So that's like one of the characteristics that you would say would be nice to pick for a seed is like its longevity of like the season, how long it can really
certain things like beets, they don't really have a season.
Exactly.
You plant one seed and you get one plant, which is also another thing to consider too. If you're looking for productivity, a 1-to-1 return isn't that great if you don't have a lot of space. Mm-hmm. So something to consider if you only have a couple beds. Grow things like beans, grow things like cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, things that are going to produce a lot. Carrots, 1-for-1 ratio. Beets, 1-for-1 ratio. Things you plant one seed and only get one.
Almost your roots vegetables, it sounds
Yeah,
like?
pretty much your root. Carrots, beets, radishes, things like that. You're going to have pretty much 1-for-1. So,
that's a good tip.
So next thing I want to talk about was some of your summer greens. So a lot of times gardeners, they you might grow lettuce and it goes to bolt early in the season. I like to grow greens that I consider very heat tolerant greens because you're going to have a harvest all season long. So it kind of ties in what we just talked about with production. My favorite by far is the Rainbow Light Swiss Chard, Rainbow Mix Swiss Chard. It is super, super good, really awesome in salads, tender. It's a lot like kale in what it produces, but super heat tolerant, and it's something that I think does not get enough love from beginning gardeners. It is a tried and true variety that I think if you do not grow at least one plant, you got to, at least one plant, because it will produce all season long, and it's something that you can saute it, you can put it in salads, you can juice it. It's got a ton of different uses. So again, for someone like me that's trying to put food on the table, it doesn't have like a single use type thing. Like a rutabaga, for instance. I mean,
it's versatility.
It's very versatile, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, a rutabaga you can pretty much like roast it, and that's about it. Because it's such a single use thing. But Swiss chard, multiple uses. And then the very last thing I wanted to show you, because the thing about picking seeds, Cindy, is that I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to feel scared to try a new variety, because all the varieties will be good. It's just about moderation and how much you buy, knowing how much space you have, and being realistic with that. And then also just picking smart varieties. So, for instance, a prime example of picking a smart variety is if you live in a very short growing season, like let's say northern Michigan. Here in lower Michigan, our season is short, but it's not like super short. But for someone, let's say in North Dakota, where their growing season might be like 90 days, would not recommend picking a large tomato. I would recommend picking a smaller tomato. We get this all the time for people that, you know, they buy tomatoes and they say, my tomato grew, but it did never produce before the season ended. And I simply say, well, what kind of tomato plant were you growing? Oh, I was trying to grow a big beefsteak tomato. I like them for salads. Bottom line is, you just have to be realistic. And I think that's a big thing that gardeners struggle with, is just being realistic. Realistic with their space and realistic with their growing season. So one prime example, black cherry tomato versus black from Tula tomato. Both are a black colored tomato, but the cherry tomato varieties are a very smart play. I mean, even if you live with someone even if you're someone that lives in a long growing season, cherry tomatoes, you can't beat the production and you can't beat the versatility of them. But especially if you live in a short growing season, these mature in about 65 days versus the black from Tula, 85 days. So you're looking at 20 days difference, and if you live in some place where you only get like 90 days of growing season, that 20 days, I mean, that's a huge chunk of your time that you have available. So this might only mature with about 5 days left in your growing season. This matures, and you at least have about a month left of growing season, so you can at least get something. Yeah. So it's just about buying smart, being realistic, trying varieties that are tried and true by people that have been growing them for decades and even centuries. So that's why heirlooms are great. But then also just growing things that you've heard of, and then only designating a little space to new varieties, and not just being, again, I guess, overly optimistic with how many you're going to be able to plant and stuff. So, hey, hope you all enjoyed part 2, episode 2 of the Back to Basics series. I am really loving this series, and I think, are you enjoying it so far?
Yes.
And now I do know a lot of you voiced that they wanted to see Cindy get a little more hands-on. Cindy, I can promise you, in the next episode, you're gonna want to get some gloves, because you're gonna get dirty on this next one. So stay tuned for part 3. We're gonna be building beds, and we're gonna be talking about easy raised bed construction, and then episode 4 is going to be talking about the right soil to fill the raised beds. So a little stuff to stay tuned for, but we're really excited, and hopefully you're excited as well to learn. And if you come with an open mind, I'm sure you'll learn. So awesome. Hey, hopefully you all enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new. And as always, this is Luke from the MI Gardener channel, and
Mrs. MI Gardener, Cindy.
And we'll talk to y'all later. Remember to grow big or go home. See you guys. Bye.